So please, just now, welcome Marko Milić. Marko Milić is our choreographer and dancer, and he's the creator of the Binema project and the whole Binema program here. Of course, with some members of your team and dancers. And unfortunately, the scientific part wasn't able to join us this evening. They are working at the Faculty of Technical Sciences in Novi Sad. Actually, they have to teach, so they have classes currently. But Marko, this isn't really for the very first time that you are somehow developing your work in the similar context. But currently, we are actually in the museum, which is somehow exploring and presenting and elaborating our heritage in science and technology. And now you're coming with your performance, which is actually dealing with something quite contemporary, something quite advancing, something which can be labeled as a key enabling technology of nowadays. So how you're feeling? What's the response, not only of this audience, but of this whole place and this heritage and the things which can be seen and actually experienced here?
So thank you, Lale, and thank you everybody who were participating in the work. I'm super happy to see so many different bodies and experiences happening in a periphery of a museum, and I was just eardropping to some super bizarre and beautiful conversations, and I really love to see bodies and contemporary dance in scientific context. And it was quite, for me, beautiful to see how Binemas were developing what they were collecting in a space. So it was super cool to see, yeah.
So this was like a second performance. First we had at the opening event. So can you already announce, are there some further Binemas, and can you somehow conclude what would be your further steps in this regard?
I mean, I would love to see how this could work in a longer term. Like, we just had a few months of work. So usually Binema is a long-term work, and it started in 2019. So I would like to see how it will continue with these performers in different also institutions who are targeting science. So that would be really interesting to see.
Okay, let's then hear for some other thoughts, ideas, and experiences. Please join us at the third AI Talks panel this day, together with speakers representing other institutions and other aspects of our project, both locally here in Serbia and also as part of European project, European Artificial Intelligence Lab. So I will just give a brief announcement. Yeah. Except Marko Milić, the author of the Binema and choreographer. We have this evening with us Sunčica Pasuljević Kandić, who is an antidisciplinary artist, if I may label it that way, and also a teacher at the faculty at the Arts Academy of the University of Novi Sad, and also one of the co-authors of the art+science+CPM production called Ivy, or AI Cross VI, which was developed and presented last year within the framework of the AI Lab project as well. Then our dear partner and colleague from the Ars Electronica, Martin Honzik, artist himself, but actually director of the festival Ars Electronica. And then another partner from our network, Lale Deshusses, representing Hexagone Grenoble. Lea is in charge of the Experimenta program and also on the art and science collaborations. My name is Dobrivoje Lale Erić, and I'm a selector of art and science edition here in Serbia. So Lea, if I may start with you, since your institution is somehow recognized in Europe, even beyond to this kind of performative activities, and also those experimental productions, experimental developments, which are usually somehow trying to trigger different communities and also enable communication between different entities. So from your perspective, would it be somehow, can you find some relations and some maybe analogies between Binema now and things we're doing here with the things that you are developing at the Hexagone?
What I noticed is that there are kind of two trends. Artists who wants to deal with the AI as a tool, like integrating the technology in itself in their performances or their artistic work. And other artists using AI more as an inspiration to, they like to talk about AI. It helps them to write a text, a story, narratives about AI. And I had the impression that what we saw tonight was exactly this. I mean, the performance we saw, we're not integrating the technology AI, but talking about AI. And we in the AILA project, we mostly deal with artists integrating the tool, but Rocio, for example, at the end couldn't integrate it AI as she would like to, so it was kind of something fake. And now we're working with artists that exactly do the same. It means how do we talk about this without using it as a tool in the technology? And I think it brings over other questions and another relationship also to this technology and to ourselves, because AI is kind of reflects also our humanity. So,
but is it possible somehow to translate this notion and also this base of knowledge staying behind? Is it possible somehow to actively engage audience not only because of artistic concepts and some artistic aspects, but having also in mind this background which is based in technology systems behind, or algorithms, codes? I
think so, because even more maybe, because you're not bringing a technology they don't know to use and to manipulate, but you ask them to be part of what you're offering them. So they have to engage themselves to understand what is happening. And I mean, maybe it's the best way to touch the emotion of somebody, not just only be a passive visitor, but like being active in your experience. So,
well, for us here at the CPN, actually, this learning experiment, the whole learning process behind is maybe focal, crucial because of our specific position. Now, I will jump to Sunčica, because last year you were part of one of our own productions, collaborations between really diverse group of people representing quite many different domains, and it is about this Ivy production, and it also has some performative elements, meaning it addresses our movement in the public space clearly, but it's also based on some learning techniques and learning elements behind. So for you as an artist, how it was difficult maybe to collaborate with different kind of creators, for it different expertises behind, and can you maybe share some specific experience from this production?
Yes, of course. For me, it was honestly really challenging. So I was part of the Ivy team. It was 5 of us. I was one of the artists. There was another visual artist, Isidora, and I'm not gonna like maybe name them all, but basically we were visual artists, directors coming from drama arts, and also andragogy. So basically the science part was actually humanitarian science. So it's not the kind of like a normal computer science technical support that was in our team. And it was very challenging to probe into their minds, the way how they perceive artificial intelligence. When we came together, we realized that all of us share completely different points of view and perspectives of thinking about what artificial intelligence is. And so unlike your work, we decided that we don't want to try and translate it or represent what AI is. We want to try and approach this to anyone else who are also struggling to understand what AI is. Because I'm kind of getting into the AI for at least 5 years now, especially into the materiality of technology. So all the intertwined things behind the AI. So when you say AI, how many of you thinks of Terminator? Can you, like, seriously? I think it's more of you, but you don't want to share maybe. If not, it's a great group of people. But basically, whenever you say AI, it's Terminator kind of sci-fi movies and super intelligence. But it's not really, and it's not that abstract. It's actually a system, translated system of data that tries to communicate through you, which is kind of something that you were trying to do. At least, I don't want to assume, but I would like to hear your thoughts on your work. Our work was really not about translating things, but really trying to engage people to seek their own knowledge of what artificial intelligence is. And honestly, it maybe sounds so great, but it was a 7-month work. It's definitely not enough time to pick the brains of people around you in your team, because we also got to work during the COVID times, working digitally. So imagine trying to meet the people, to understand their logic, to understand their profession, how they think, how they work through digital means. And then you realize how challenging it is to actually make joint work, because we didn't join based on someone else's idea. The idea came us discussing. So we discussed about the idea for at least 2 or 3 months. We draft the idea, and then we realized that what we want to do is to actually create this moment, and this is what IV represents. AI translates to V, which is translated into Serbian veštačka inteligencija, but it also means V, like, sorry, you. So AI is you. Everyone who creates AI, because it's all of us, as a consumers, as someone coming from political, governmental background, we are all intertwined and creating AI and kind of consuming it at the same time. So idea was to actually take them on a tour performatively through Belgrade, to explore through Belgrade all these moments where they don't really perceive artificial intelligence being there, but it actually is.
Mm-hmm. And at the end, especially from this perspective, 1 year after the whole research process, did you succeed in establishing some sort of common language within the team, and how you're feeling this kind of collaboration? Would it prove like a successful one in this case, or would you go for more, maybe?
I think that we managed somehow to find some sort of shared interest. For example, I did find shared interest with a couple of people, and I would like to continue the collaboration, definitely. And actually, we are thinking of continuing in different ways. But I think in terms of how we started all of it, the methodology of us getting to know each other, I think it requires a bit of more help from Center of Promotion of Science. Like I think you really tried to probe into the art and science collaboration, but you're coming from science, and you're not coming from arts. And I think the idea of collaboration, there's no joint recipe of what collaboration is. So everyone thinks of collaboration differently. Not just coming from science or coming from arts. Anyone thinks of what collaboration is different. And it's not equal to cooperation, which I think somehow, as I perceive it as a participant, was mostly your goal was mostly towards cooperation, not really collaboration. Us meeting, we decided that we really want to try and collaborate, like share the idea. When I say collaborate, because this is what I do and research, what it means to collaborate in terms of arts or whatever with anyone and try to communicate. This is how I try to figure out my work and practice. So I approached the colleagues with this notion, like, what does it mean for you to collaborate? How can we establish this? So we tried our idea to try to think about what it means to collaborate. And then we started to think about the AI. And then we realized that AI is about collaboration. Because right now, when you think about who creates AI, honestly, can you say that it's a corporation like Facebook, or it's Mark Zuckerberg? Do you place it on the individual, or do you place it on a corporation, or do you place it on the government? It's very hard to distinguish. But basically, whenever you create a system like this, it's about collaboration, not cooperation. And usually now, it's about cooperation. And I think in order to think more about the well-being of everyone, planetary scale, not human-centric kind of AI, which is kind of like a buzzword also now, I think we need to think about not dividing art-science collaboration, but collaboration. Because in this word, we're still dividing art and science or technology, and we should not do that.
Well, let's then go to a place which is, if I may say that, the place where actually those bridges have been made now for decades even, and it's a place where you're, Martin, trying to establish common languages with such a diversities, not only in regard of art and sciences, but also of cultures and histories, traditions, different perspectives all over the globe. So people are now coming for decades to Linz to explore your festival and to somehow try to take this sentiment away. But you, who is in charge of the festival, how difficult or how inspirational it is to start each year again and try to bring something new and to respond adequately to the current barriers and obvious needs?
Well, compared to what you just said, making a festival on this topic, it's not difficult at all, because, you know, you start something and after 5 days it's done. But you were using collaboration, cooperation, and these are things that have one thing in common. This momentum. That is not it's the sustainability. It's the long-term thing. It's this that you cannot break time. That you need to grow something slowly. But second part, inspiring. A festival is here to inspire and to trigger, to push. If one would come saying, hey, okay, this festival is here and its duty is to change the entire world, then I would say, you fool. I mean, yeah, we are a starting point and a triggering point. And we are actually a stage that has established itself where every year people are coming together from all over the world that do have the questions in common. But they all come from different situations, life situations, geopolitical situations, cultural situations, and they share, so to speak, their vision, which should be a global vision. And the inspiring moment there is endless, I would say. Us, and it's not my festival, it's our festival. Who are working there, we are all hybrids in being very talented in managing things, but also totally addicted to the topics and interested to the topics that we have in front of us. And the lucky thing we are in is that we always have it to do with cutting-edge technologies. So we always have this toe in the past future, as I was joking with Mihar today, who sadly is not joining us. And that means that we are always there where the big shifts are required or the big shifts are standing there as the huge challenges. AI is one topic that Ars Electronica has been focusing on since, I think, 2018. Was it 2018? There we saw this technology coming above us. And before we dedicated, so to speak, our entire mission to that technologies that would influence us. But there it became quickly clear that this technology would like be a new kind of layer, a new umbrella. At that time, it was a lousy harvest, to be honest, which was not lousy that way. The quality of the festival was that we saw artists approaching a world, or let's say, getting in touch with a new technology, and parallel, the world did the same. I mean, unbelievable privilege that you are a compañero, so to speak, with something that is currently growing, or that is set into life, and that will guide us, yeah, for generations, I would say. And if you see this evolution, and you said it before, it was finger exercises. Artist's talent is that, yes. On the other side, there was nothing more substantial there. And a colleague of us said, still today there are barely there are artists who in a real good quality reflect this. There are not too many out there, but it's a growing thing. But again, back to your question, it is massively inspiring. But you should be aware what a festival is for.
Mm-hmm. But you're also relying on generations behind and decades of the existence of Ars Electronica and everything what it represents nowadays and what it was in the past. Here it's our only 6th edition so far of art+science program, and sometimes we really don't know how to position ourselves and regarding media attention on some even scientific community, artistic community, like Sunčica also emphasized, we are always labeled either belonging more to sciences or to arts, and we don't want to actually to belong. We want to establish something new, something relevant, something from our perspective is important in this current time, in the 3rd decade of 21st century. Are you still facing some kind of preconceptions and misunderstanding while presenting your ideas and moving boundaries literally?
Yeah, permanently. I would say. I also don't agree, for instance, with what you said there before. I mean, not that I want to, not that I want to fight your opinion. That for sure, you are totally right that AI or that art and science should be seen as something being part of our holistic concept of a bigger image, which is the fact. But isn't it also the fact that the controversy or the decisions that we are doing are based on controversial opinions, so that we all benefit from different mindsets, and also for sure from different disciplines. So we all know that historically, I mean, it all started in one faculty. Yeah? I mean, it was this one study, but I think that the artist's role in that is multiple, and the artists. This is also a trend that we see are tending to get out of their artistical world to participate there, where the huge challenges are set for the entire society, and to implement artists there in these prototypical moments where we set something into life. Could take over a much more immanent role in that, a principal role in our society. Because what we all over the place, all over the planet lack is the ethic in our motion forward. But there are many complexities in that, and there is not one opinion.
And which we need probably the most nowadays, the kind of ethics and ethical story behind it. Sunčica, you wanted to?
I need to elaborate my point of view, because I do really believe that in diversity, in the different kinds of perceptions about AI or whatever, it's actually the point of collaboration. So I didn't want to say that it has to merge, but I think it's I'm interested in semantics. When you say art and science, you kind of already make a distinction. When you say artificial intelligence, or you say complex information processing, you think about different things. But basically, artificial intelligence is complex information processing. But you don't associate meanings the same. And I think it applies also the same with the collaboration. We definitely can extract something different from artists, something different from technicians or from scientists. But in order to do that, we have to stop dividing them so much, put them in a group together. I think we share the same opinion, but maybe I kind of phrase it a bit differently. But that's the thing, you have the need to call it. Why do we really constantly have the need to call certain things and categorize them?
Because of the collaboration?
Not really, because the AI is about categorization. I love the quote of Kate Crawford when she says that really the AI is not smart, it's not intelligent. And I really do kind of follow her point of view, and she really puts that greatly in her newest book and all of her research that she's doing. But she's really right. We're constantly thinking about the intelligence or intelligent processing, but all about this kind of form of artificial intelligence, about human perception of categorizing things. And we categorize things through language. And AI is something that combines every one of us, meaning it combines different cultures. I think when you shared your questions, you mentioned something about diversity. How do we approach and think about diverse groups? And this relates to the ethical approach of the AI. How do you approach ethically differently to different cultures? Is it really possible? Because AI functions as a system that unifies everyone. Is it really possible to keep all the diversities with this kind of system that categorizes things? And, we have certain ethics. And we can maybe go into certain lengths, which I would not agree, to go to the certain lengths that Balkan ethics is different than, I don't know, Western or Eastern ethics is different. But there are some cultural differences. How do you combine all of that into one tool? Because this tool is created through categories. I think it's a very contradictory thing, but it's a very interesting field to research. And in order to research that, we do need to have different professions gathering around, sharing their points of view, but also respecting different points of view. For me, in collaboration, you need to respect different points of view, to be in the position where you don't know everything, and you should never know everything, and you should always question yourself through the position of perspective of someone else. This is how the word is different between collaboration and cooperation. So,
but from this perspective, we can conclude that AI is democratic in its essence because it's treating equally everyone, but its usage and application are changing that position.
Everyone here from your partners shared Joy Bolambini work about Algorithmic Justice League, and she's a quite good reason of saying that AI is not democratic at all. And it's quite flawed, really, really full of errors, which is a good thing to exploit these errors. But it also points out that we need to, in order to create a kind of like good AI, if we can even call it like that, or universally humanistic AI, thinking about well-being, not just humans, but all planet, is that really possible if each and every one of us thinks differently or works differently? I'm not trying to position the perspective. I'm really trying to think about it. Is this possible? Is this also the direction that we all should go? Like, because there's a lot of issues of trying also to centralize the AI for certain cultures or certain nations, right? We're seeing this war between US and China as well in these terms. So it's a lot of interesting field to think.
Well,
just quickly, I mean, back to this aspect that I raised, that we were so privileged to accompany, so to speak, a process of a technology and the society and this dialogue. At the beginning, it was really to understand what technology is and the phenomenon, and this is what I'm struggling a little bit still, is that we put it in counterbalance on eye to eye with us, with our intelligence. So it was an entire festival, Breaking a Lens, about actually what humankind is, who we are, and not about the technology itself. And now we have a small group, but a high qualified group of professional artists who are not doing art and science, they are doing art as science. And they have become a little bit closer, I would say. And those are artists who are in the scientific field. They avoid to conceptualize, like we have a big field of modern art, who in its conception is able to come over physical borders and to link things that are actually abstract in its constellation. I am talking from artists who are acting who are deep in the field of the scientific areas. Today we heard of Spela Petric, for instance. She doesn't need to abstract. She is aware of what the artists, what the scientists are doing, what the field is on, and she can really there where scientific key research, or let's say where scientists are really working in their cutting edge world, she can measure whether there is a lack of ethics or not. So, I mean, and this is what Ars Electronica tries, so to speak, to promote, and has been trying to promote the entire time. Those who are not staying in their, on their sides, and looking to the other, those who go the risk and are changing the sides and diving into this kind of technology. And the other aspect is this chauvinistic quality humankind has, that we invent one technology and that we tend to change all the old technologies with these new technologies. I mean, there is the quality of humankind embedded, but it's also the disaster where we always end up. And the wisdom that the technology, the wisdom, it's again a paradigm, the wisdom that the technology could help us to answer the question where the hell we want technology and what for we want technology is also something that I would love to ask a well-trained AI. Because this is really where we always end up in the same patterns. We are doing, as over generations, as humans, the same mistakes again. And I really deeply hope that one would come and position this technology not on the other side of humans, so that we end up in discussing what the hell is this, is intelligence or not. So where we understand where our limits of intelligence are, to position the technology there to help us to simulate, so to speak, better in what disasters we would drive us as humanity in the close or in the far future. And there, I think, to discuss AI there, and there are many samples already out there that are the positive samples, I would say. And it was 2 years before, 3 years before not the case. There you could easily go into a school class without explaining the algorithm and the technological background. We say, hey, there is a technology that could help us, so to speak, to understand better when some obstacle from orbit is coming, and in 5,000 years we are going to collide. So the AI could help us to kind of identify those things. At the end, we need to come up with the solutions, which is another problem of humanity.
Well, maybe intentionally not, you tackled one critical aspect of this whole process, which is how to involve more people into the research which is creating new technologies, and what's the story behind. And I want now to discuss a bit positions about different learning or training or empowering methodologies and possibilities, not only for artists, but it's also important to maybe empower scientists in order to accept different positions, to respect different views and different practices. So Marko, coming back to you, for creating this Binema, actually, it was a strange time. Again, it was partly this COVID time, but you had a chance to work for a couple of months with AI research team based at the University of Novi Sad, quite young, enthusiastic, and open at the end research team, who actually was awarded by Serbia National Science Fund for their initial investigation on very specific aspects of AI. And somehow you had a chance to get into their system, to understand maybe better their routine, their practices, their activities, but they are trying to develop, to establish, to perform in this project. But also there is somehow this opposite side or collaborative side, however we can see at this position, who are also eager to learn more about this process. And for this initial presentation of Binema, the opening event, actually they were with us, and they also joined the performance. They were part of this whole process, so they didn't just stand outside. They really physically joined, and they also took some roles in this process. So can you share maybe some experiences from this project?
Yeah, I can just tell you that it was like learning a little bit a new language in a way, because both Nikola and Jelena, who were scientific mentors for Binema, it was just trying to get where we have a common ground. It took a while to realize what it means. So I agree that there is a little there is a question how to work together from different disciplines on something that is a little bit new. So there is no recipe and stuff like you mentioned. But at the same time, for me, it felt a bit like learning language, to try to understand how, when we say something, what it means, because it's quite different for, I think, two of them. And when we talk about scientific component, they know it really well, and I do not have a knowledge about it. So that was like a slow process. But what I loved about this work was something that we were talking at the very beginning when you mentioned that it is about process. There was kind of emphasis on that, which was really relaxing in a way to get that vibe. Even if it's okay, if it's coming from institutions, sometimes when institutions say like, yeah, just it's a process, go for it. It's just like, it could mean many different things, but here I really felt it's very genuine thing, like, okay, so get together and try things out, which is quite, for me it's very remarkable. I enjoyed it a lot. So yeah, I have a feeling that time is a big part of it, like how much time it takes. Usually these things, that's why I like to think of it as a longer work, that it will take years and years, because the more time to get it, the more this language is shaped. And this is something I would looking forward in the future, how to find this mutual language. It doesn't, even if it's so different, like where we can find a common points.
Yeah. I'm that one standing for the process. I like this perspective, but just actually it isn't your first encounter of this kind of structure. You did that something similar, but in the normal times, which is also a very important factor, unfortunately. And you did it at the Bosch headquarters in Germany. You were part of their residency program.
Yeah. It's,
where actually initially Binema was conceived, in a way.
Yeah, completely, yeah. So, but it's 2019, there was a collaboration between Academy Schloss Solitude and Bosch. So they developed, together with two artists, they developed a platform at a kind of top floor of the building in Bosch. So they decided to give 3 months for different artistic projects. So yeah, initial idea is that there is something called disruptive innovation, which there is a tendency for companies, I think, to think about it. So if we really want something that is disruptive, that could change the course of the future, how we can make it in a way. So there was some smart people, I think, who said, okay, so maybe we can make a space which could be like some sort of hovering space, you know, on the top floor, where we can invite artists and scientists working together, but with no goal that it could happen. So this is really beautiful. So there is no need for this disruptive innovation to come, which is really also something on these terms, a process, like process-based work. So this was a different setting because it's a lab. It's a multi-lab facility where people work together. So it was just exciting to try to see how contemporary dance could fit in research. Even Binema started there as an idea, a storytelling idea, how AI could have its own interests, what she wants to do, how she wants to organize her life, which is having short lifespan. So it was a bit storytelling, like in a very scientific environment, which was nice to try.
It was also about how to translate this message and also how to transcend this notion through different means.
For me, translation is the issue that I hear a lot. For me, translation is not the component of it. It's more opening up ideas so we can try to see where we are. Mm-hmm. So I don't have a skill to translate something so complex, but more to see what will come up as a stimulation or interest from each one of them. Because for scientists it's different. For me it's different. For also employees over there it's different. So, yeah.
Different experiences. Lale, I'm coming now to you. I would ask you to repeat what you probably said twice at least today, but I was really impressed by your training program that you developed despite all challenges and all closures and restrictions. Still, you've been able through AI Lab somehow to bring people together and to empower professionals you are working with.
So yes, you're talking about the GAES, what we call GAES. It's in French it's like Groupe Artistique d'Exploration Scientifique, and in English it would be Artistic Group for Scientific Exploration. So the idea was to imagine training programs for artists. So because we're always thinking also to the audience and what artists what message they can deliver to the audience. But the question was like, okay, we're going to focus on the artists and what are they need? They need scientific knowledge. So how can we bring to them this knowledge? So we organized those training programs. So 2 sessions of 3 days. We gathered about 10 artists. They were participating to both sessions, and 10 researchers. So they were not the same, the first session and the second session, because we didn't make them in the same city. But the scientific really wanted to be there also during the whole session, like the 3 days, and not just being invited to give a talk, transmit their knowledge, and they go. They really wanted also to have, they also expected from the artists to bring them questions and new perspectives, and they really wanted to exchange this. And this was our thought, because at the beginning we were like, okay, we're focusing on the artists only, and we're using the, yes?
You train also scientists using artists, because you mentioned artists need scientists. Why do we think that scientists do not need artists or someone else?
That's exactly my point.
That's great.
And that's why I said it was our thought at the beginning to be centered on the artist. And scientists came back to us and say, but I would like to be here the whole time, because I also need those point of views and critics and remarks and stuff. So we decided now that it's also very important to have the scientific group the whole time and to create a real balanced group. And this has worked very well. And we noticed that at the end, artists wanted to continue working with them, and scientific also came back, say, I would like to work with this artist too. So in this way, it was successful because we had also no artistic expectations. So we didn't ask the artist, okay, you will participate to this training program, but please do a little performance at the end. No, not at all. It was like just
the process, emphasizing, they're also
exactly
emphasizing the process.
And they were really happy about this. But at the end we were, okay, so we're giving you this knowledge, but it's also good to give the financial means. So that's why we launched after those sessions an open call to give the opportunity to those artists and scientists or others to produce a short performance. And we will continue with those training programs because artists were super enthusiastic, scientific also. Everybody is asking for new sessions, so we're going to continue. It was focused on AI, but we might focus on other technologies or scientific research. Yeah. So yeah, this was successful, so we will try to continue.
Yeah. Yes. I'm just coming to you actually, because you're here very... No, but you're wearing many hats here. We need to emphasize that, and we are all belonging to different kind of positions, perspectives, institutions, and the structures behind. So you're also working, Sunčica, at the Arts Academy. So you're working now for a while with students, and you're aware of needs of young artists, those coming generations, when they want to deal with such a specific stories and complex topics. And then you have your own practices, but you also, of course, have to take care of their wishes at the end. So, based on our discussion, of course, you can comment Lale's position and what they did at the Hexagone in Grenoble. What would be somehow recommendable for the perspective of an art faculty regarding those kind of empowerment processes, or maybe is it somehow possible also to bring scientists into your premises?
Yeah, I cannot say about recommendable because I'm really questioning a position of art education. Like, I really want to probe into it, experiment, and maybe like even hack it. Because how can you educate someone about art if from my position you think about art as something that belongs to each and every one of us? So how can I actually even teach it to someone else if they are the ones who have to find their own way to navigate it? There are no specific rules. If at least in my mind you define art as I like to see it from the Devil's Dictionary, it's the only word that defies any definition. So, and I love really this kind of definition of no definition. So I would not say that there is any kind of like recommendation. I can only speak from my experience, what I try to do. I try to bring different knowledges and professions to my students. People coming from linguistics, people coming from music, people coming from science, to give talks, lectures, or just talk with them. And I try to discuss with them different subjects that are not related to the art, especially working on the digital arts subject. We don't really talk about art much. We talk about position of humans within society through technology and around planet, and we try to figure out the language, and then they had to figure out their way how they will express this. And it's very hard for them to do because it's very hard for them to think about research such as, for example, Vladan's research. It's really far away from their mind. So I'm recently really trying to think about how do we actually approach them with this complex research. How do we find the language, what Milan actually mentioned in the way how he expressed that he was trying to find a way of mutual language with all the people that he tried to collaborate with. And I think this is very important. How do we collaborate? Mm-hmm. How do we communicate this? And I noticed everyone's presentations today and how you also mentioned your collaborations. I never saw any name of any scientists, anyone from technical support. I only see organizations. And I think also mentioning about sustainability and support, there should never be just one name. Like, this is all, again, about trying to make differences. Mm-hmm. You know, like, I'm really interested to hear your experience of collaborating with different organizations and people. Like, how how was it to actually collaborate with them? Like, how was for your institutions to figure out for so many years working in this sector, what did you figure out that it's actually about collaboration, like the challenges of collaborating? Because for me, that's a really, really tricky thing. Like, you're organizing all these many events, festivals, gathering artists. How do you gather artists? Do you invite them? Do you put an open call? How do you try to place them? I think Petar mentioned that you were trying to, this is also my experience of being a participant last year, you're trying to pair us with some scientists. How do you decide? Who decides? How do we manage to collaborate finally? I think it requires, like Mark said, a lot of time. This is a really big process, and it takes a lot of time to constantly rethink it. And I think you all of your partners shared so many different presentations, but my question was all the time, like, how do you all think about collaboration? Like, you're all talking about, we collaborate with scientists, we collaborate with artists, I feel it as a buzzword. Like, what are these different experiences that are happening for you as an artist, for you as an organizer, for you coming from science, you're coming from arts, performing arts? It's a very different notion of how you navigate your ways. Do you share it in your consortium? Do you share these challenges? Like, do they go outside to other people? Like, I would really love to kind of read or get to know more about all of these, like, methods maybe that you figure out.
Yeah. Just a second. Actually, a year and a half ago, Christina from Ars Electronica told me, don't call him. Don't call him, someone. And I tried, and he never responded after 3, 4, 5 emails. So we need to listen to our partners and base ourselves on their experiences. But
well, I don't want to start regretting what happened before, but I sit here in full swing and with full confidence that what you heard that morning was in so far important, because you know what all these institutions did there is in so far groundbreaking that we are stepping in on thin ice into a new area. And we don't want, I mean, our anecdotes of the day are full of stories where people meet and they reflect this, artists and scientists. These are the anecdotes, but here on this stage, it is about providing these protagonists that we want to bridge, that we want to bring together a space that is actually rather neutral, where they can, without any boundaries, shyness, can make their mistakes and learn what, for the sake of the individual, the quality of a collaboration or a cooperation might be or should be. And that's why we are an institution. We are stressing in the last years that we are not even an institution, we are a platform. And our responsibility is simply, for sure, personally, to value what is going on in the room, what was their interaction. But our main responsibility is to create these spaces, imaginary spaces for sure, and real spaces, where these happenings can take place in a protected, let's say, way, because it's still a young plant to grow, so to speak.
I mean, this is what I try to do with a group of my students, it's maybe 20 students. What I maybe wasn't clear is that how is this visible to anyone else? You know, we have a certain way of communicating our work. You know, we use the presentations, we did this with this many numbers, but these things that now that you explain that are great, like how do they actually get back to the other?
Again, an institutional, free. An institution has the tools that we can, that you can create some kind of a food chain. So, I mean, it started with a project like that, where we were investigating a field, a space, whether there is some valuable things to get out and to further develop. I can tell now, and also due to the pandemics for sure, and to this fact that existentially we had to reinvent ourselves, there was simply not a festival possible. But we dedicated an entire museum that is dedicated to the region, to this topic. Vladan, you guys, your approach, but all the other, the ethical approach, the philosophical approach, the music samples, you get a real full hug of experiencing what this AI thing is. And beyond this, and again now due to the pandemic, we are offering online to schools, to unemployed, beyond our region now already. We're starting now to kind of enter this market, Vienna, young employees. So we are spreading that, and we are trying to transform this onto a level where we have packages ready. And sorry that I'm talking in this product style, but these packages are just packages because they are dedicated to the different interest groups in order to be able to kind of reach and address the most diversity that is possible. In its intention, I think this might be an answer to your question. Nevertheless, there it's working good. There you fail. And it's also about those, I mean, it's about the sender, but it's also about those who receive the sendings. I mean, what they do with it, what they want to do with it. And I think this is important. And it's highly didactical what we are doing out of this art thing. And we are treated pretty hard by the art world that we are utilizing, abusing, so to speak, the arts for the sake of educating others and explaining things that are super complex in a simplified way.
Yeah. Well, just to add in our case, and maybe you saw today also when Peter was presenting our position, that we're doing this tour across Serbia and visiting faculties, including yours, and presenting what we're doing and also inviting people to join us. And even here now, we don't have really a stage here. It's the common space, and this is our community, and we're literally inviting people to work with us. And sometimes we have a list with those who somehow got into touch and asked if they can be invited to join some processes, some programs, and actually that's how some people join those selections that you also passed, that you were also belonging to. But going further to one of the productions of this, exactly this very context, this kind of selection, we have a work dealing with destiny of Danube called Woodiana Oracle. It's about making a forecast of Danube, and except Lea, in this case, actually, we are all belonging to this Danube axis from Belgrade to Novi Sad, and then further west to Linz, and we can share this kind of sentiment, so we can add Grenoble to that list as well. And speaking about oracles, I don't know if you're believing or not in those, and if you tried your luck with Woodiana here, but to be your perspective, maybe Levi, I can start with you. In this case, what we need as a society now in Europe, and no matter how we would label this kind of collaborations and bringing people together and working together, what will be actually possible to achieve at the end, and what is needed? What's the domain when you feel that some kind of intervention is needed?
I think, I don't know if it's, I wouldn't say it's needed, but I think it should be more natural to cross disciplines, and we should stop, as you said, to categorize things, fields, language also, people, and cross more all those disciplines, and it will be more interesting for everybody, even at class. I mean, you have mathematics, French, arts, music, but we should also let professors work together and imagine new formats, and this would be for sure, or will allow a better understanding also of society and how the world works, and to create a language which reflects better who we are, because we do not have the same vocabulary and not using the same words to express something. But okay, so that was for your question, and I think you're completely right when you said, why didn't you speak about, why didn't you name the scientists participating in this? And maybe it's a bias we have because we're talking to each other between cultural centers or institutions, so we're focused again on artists. But for example, And I'm thinking about my position when I'm in a consortium about a Horizon project. So on the research side, I would say, so this department of the research center named by blah, 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 are working with artists. So I changed completely my point of view. But you're right, and I shouldn't say with artists, but with those artists. So I will be careful about this now in the future, and I think she's right.
So it's a clear takeaway of our
exactly. Thank you.
discussion today. Okay. And Martin, since you're probably the most aware of all global trends and things happening across the globe, what's emerging on the horizon? What we can expect in coming years?
Come on,
how to address?
I just if everything I could tell you something, but it would have no value. No, I just can say the institution that I represent is, so to speak, the victim of its own mission since '79, and we will keep on following this mission. And this mission brings us always to this point where you guys appear and asking us these questions. It is not us defining these trends. It is us representing a global species, we call them media artists, who tell us what the trends are, who they are the trend barometer, because what we see is the tools that they are using and how they are using them, and for what sake, for what reason they are using them on the one side, or how they critically, so to speak, are reflecting the technology as the technology itself. And this is what we will keep on doing, that is for sure. But one thing I can promise is that this little piece of artificial intelligence will keep on guiding us. And that's why the didactic at Ars Electronica, that's why it is about finding methods of we have to foster, so to speak, the general will to collaborate, and we have to offer methods to cooperate. And this is, I think, our duty. And this is also the trend that we see, that single artists, individuals, let's say global citizens as well as scientists, they are all tending to get out of their lives, because they see that the challenges on the horizon are only solvable if we're doing that, if we unite, if we collaborate and find ways to cooperate. Yeah. This is our mission.
Yeah, so solidarity. And
yeah, if you ask me, yes.
For sure. Okay. Then going further south on Danube to Novi Sad. What would be your perspective based actually on all those experiences and things you're working on currently, and that we're planning to work together in the future also, and developing now? What do you think? And also having in mind this specific, really specific and important role that you are working with directly with young generations, that you're educating and empowering them.
This panel is probably so many questions that I just want to figure out. So, and there are so many things that I want to connect. What you said, like, trying to answer the last one, like how to approach the young generations, because at the end they are the ones like getting into the scene and everything. And I think it's in the young generations that are gonna create the scene. But I sometimes think that it's also an illusion. Like you also mentioned that Ars Electronica is not an institution that puts trends. You're trying to figure out with everyone what the trend can be, but honestly, that's also an illusion of thinking. I mean, maybe it's your intention, but when you, coming from someone as an individual artist, when you have in your reference exhibiting at Ars Electronica, it means different when you try to exhibit in your own country. So I totally understand what you tried to say, that maybe it's not your intention, but sometimes our intentions, it turns out something else.
In the art world, we are making trends, if we want or not, but our role is to contribute to the entire society, and there it is not our role to create trends. It is just the artists that we give the stage and the window, and they might cause some trends. Yeah.
And these are the complex systems that we're all working on. You cannot avoid this, like, because it's not your responsibility, it's out of your control. It will be the art, small institutions that will create this. So how do we think about the young artists? Well, my point is to not to educate them. I think it's a strong word when you use educate. I try to transfer my experience, but also probe them to think differently from the position of their own experience. So I try to give them everything they know that it's mapped on the scene to figure out, so they can figure out their own place. What is their place in this scene? Who they have? So let's not think about Ars Electronica, because they're coming from Novi Sad, and it's already a big, like a border of the arts in between Novi Sad and Belgrade. So we try to kind of like bridge this. Okay, there is Center for Promotion of Science that you can address. There is someone somewhere out there, other parts of Serbia that you can also address before thinking about going or reaching Ars Electronica or somewhere else. This thing, how do you engage young people? It's a learning process. Like I'm constantly trying to figure out my way with them, because every year I get a different generation. With one generation, I can talk and discuss things beautifully, and they're like, their minds are engaged in so many different levels. The other, it's like, not so much. Like, they don't really think about impact of technology. And it's interesting to hear this, like how they don't really think about the impact of technology. Like, they scroll through their pages and they're like immersed in their Instagram and TikTok, and I learn from them so much. I learn how they actually engage with technology. It's a very small difference between me and them, like 10 to 15 years, but it's a very different way of thinking or engaging with technology. And it just gives me a lot more thoughts to process about where technology might lead us. Like you said, you want to think about where it might go, which is great, but there are so many people who are not even perceiving this. Like, I think that when we think that everyone is thinking about this, but not really. We just like accept technology as it is and we just go with it. So my idea of what I want to do is try to engage with students not to think about it like that, for starters, and then see where it goes. I'm not sure if I answered your question at all, sorry.
Well, fortunately we had some students today. We had some students for the arts faculties today with us, so we'll see if that influenced them in any way. But scaling that down and coming further, Marko, you are actually just standing as an individual and independent artist in a way, so you're not belonging to any kind of institution, and you're working on your own, on your idea, on your own agenda.
No, but it's also, at least in Belgrade, independent scene, it's a tricky thing. It means collaboration with institutions as well. It's just not so much inside of institutions like maybe you're working, but it's kind of more flexible. But like now, I'm collaborating with you, so it's independently
as an individual.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So it's a flexible position, that's for sure. But
and from that very specific position, what would you say? What would be maybe your personal interest in this regard, in this field, but also in your community with your colleagues, other artists? Are those topics important at all, relevant? Are there those similar questions raised?
There was something that came up from this work which is connected to artificial intelligence, and it's a little bit how it's very easy to polarize, like to have a polarized society with algorithms working on that quite kind of subconsciously almost, but also very directly. So this for me was very interesting. Like, so I would really love to engage in the future. Is there a mean to depolarize it? So how we can bring some sort of like outside bubbles in our own bubble, which is a little bit a talk about collaboration. So that would be quite cool to think for the next work, to see is there a chance to kind of spread a little bit this echo chamber of mine with some new, not new, it's more like just like an influence that I didn't pay attention to. Because I have a feeling that especially now, if you're listening to certain kind of sources, you can sit calmly here and talk and like we are really cool now, but then just shift to another frequency of information and you will run from here screaming, thinking the world is going to, to end this moment, or there is a war coming, or these things. So it's very tricky. And then what I believe and what you believe, it's there is a story behind it. So I would be interested to work on that, to see how this could happen. Maybe also with the help of artificial intelligence. Would they be a mean to open this bubble up? That would be cool.
Yeah, one of those Binema characters was actually echoing.
Yeah, Echo was, yeah, she was echoing. Yeah.
So that's somehow your standpoint. Okay, thank you really for your time, for your inputs and sharing your thoughts and ideas and experiences. I don't know if you have any question from the, not that large audience anymore, but maybe from the online audience. If you have any comment or question there. Do we? Not, maybe?
Something on the role of science popularization and its importance on social media like YouTube, for example.
I will repeat that. So the importance of the science promotion, is it like for me or for our guests? Science promotion through online media. But I mean not institutional, in general, how to maybe promote science, or whether it is at least adequate to use these kind of tools for science promotion as such, or to do it on a much more substantial level. Sunčica?
I think that promotion comes after, when you create a certain environment of self-criticality. So every time we speak about promotion and visibility of art or science or whatever, but so I feel like in thinking about how to promote things, we neglect, are we actually creating an environment that actually is existing here? Like, I have people who work, because I come from new media department at Novi Sad, and recently now we have also new media department in Belgrade. And I'm constantly thinking for about 10 years now, is there a new media scene in Serbia? Is there actually an environment, because my students constantly ask me that, where they can continue? I ask myself as a student that, and ever since I finished my studies, I tried to kind of create an environment as an individual. I'm trying also that through an NGO, through an institution, and it's very hard. Really, it takes a lot of years, a lot of effort, different connections. So before thinking about promoting it, because this was also my thinking when I started to work in an NGO related to art, science, and technology, and this is when I actually understood what new media art practices is, what autonomy behind artificial intelligence is. I realized we're constantly thinking about promoting things, but not actually really creating an environment. And what are the methods to create this environment? And how much patience and time it actually requires for it. Exactly. So maybe the question back is like, do you feel like there is an environment to be promoted strongly, or you still feel that there needs to be more time to kind of create this environment to help it at least become sustainable? For example, this project that you're now having, like, is there any chance that it becomes sustainable?
Well, like Martin just said, it is about failures and successes. So not all stories are successful, and it's not necessary that even Serbia as a country needs this kind of environment. That's maybe just our assumption, but maybe it's irrelevant here. Who knows?
I also think you're totally right. But just, I mean, excluding all the, how it comes to promotion from that point that it makes sense to promote, just simply looking at promotion. Look the hell what's going to, what is promoted out there. From toothpasta to so, I mean, why not promoting a little bit what you guys are doing or what we guys are doing? No doubt, I mean, to answer this question, for sure, we need more, I mean, science, I don't know who is sitting here inside, but I had an interview today. That isn't it, and there was this question, isn't it sad that in times of the 21st century where we have so much of science promotion, where we have so many achievements in science, that all of a sudden we have a public discussions that our society is divided in two parties, the ones who want to get vaccinated and the other ones who think that, I mean, this is a very good sample that what you guys are doing requires much more, let's say, intelligent, better promotion, not what you guys are doing because you are the best practice sample. But I'm totally depressed of this fact that we are living in a time where we are currently living. Us in our bulb, we are not understanding that others are reacting like they do, but getting closer, then you start to understand it. But you know, the achievements, our entire society is based on these achievements of science, and we have to break a lens that we don't stop investing money in that, because it is the key to sustain here on this planet, or the key to decide to early enough jump off this planet. What I hope is not the option.
Well, planet will survive. The question is only about us.
Yeah.
Okay, saying that, do we have anything else on our YouTube? I think our colleagues do we have any other comment? No? Do you want to ask us something? No? Then I just have to thank you once again for your time and efforts, and thank you also for joining us in Belgrade, and thank you for your work with us. Thank you, guys.